Yeah, so on the run up to Christmas, I had this lady ring up and she spent all of her kids' Christmas money on drugs. She was thinking about killing herself, but she obviously didn't want to leave the kids behind. And it was just this really traumatic and horrible moment, and I just had so much sympathy for her.
A few months ago, I did a little investigation into Talk to Frank, the UK government's drug education programme. The thing about Talk to Frank is they have fantastic marketing. In particular, their TV ads over the years have drawn a lot of attention.
If you're confused about drugs, talk to Frank.
But they have been criticised for having call handlers who don't know what they're talking about. When I called them, they didn't know if weed was legal or not.
So if cannabis is legal, well, that's a difficult one.
They didn't know how much water you should drink when you're on MDMA.
It's important for people to stay hydrated, but
And they didn't know if you can mix MDMA with antidepressants. You can't, by the way. That is really dangerous. After the video got published, a couple of people who worked at Talk to Frank reached out and they wanted to tell their story. So I interviewed both of them, and here's some of the quotes voiced by an actor.
The helpline was a service provided by the Department of Health. They contracted this helpline to an external company who then contracted a recruitment agency. I was paid about £1 over minimum wage, so I guess I applied for the experience. When I applied for the job, I was told I'd be working for 3 different helplines: Talk to Frank, the Sexual Health Information Line, and Drink Line. I could be having a conversation with someone about STDs and then have a kid scream drugs at me in the space of a few minutes. My training, from what I remember, was meant to be about a week long, and this was meant to be in-depth training on all these subject matters. Our trainers had no medical backgrounds, and I remember one of them was actually a stand-up comedian. After that, I listened to a few calls, and then I was let loose to deal with the masses. The only real qualification you needed was to have the stomach to work in a challenging call centre.
This video is brought to you by Easy Test Kits. Quick, reliable and affordable testing kits for all your favourite party prescriptions. These are presumptive testing kits, meaning they can give you a very good indication as to what is in your baggie. To learn more or to pick up, say, a synthetic cannabinoid testing kit, click on the link in the description and use my promo code SESH for a 10% discount.
We couldn't give any real advice. I mean, we weren't even trained in that. Although we didn't read a script, we sat at our computers, and when a call would pop through, you'd select the drug into our database. And a page that was basically our web page without images would pop up, and you'd have to rattle through the information. Men would often call the Sexual Health Information Line to masturbate to, and you were told off if you hung up and if you weren't completely sure that they were doing that. People would often disclose sexual abuse on all the helplines, and there was no emotional support given by the agency or the company when this happened. Breaks between calls were frowned upon, and your wrap time between calls were monitored. For Talk to Frank, we rarely actually got calls from people actually wanting real information or advice around taking drugs or harm reduction. I remember one group rang up on a payphone, and I don't know why I could tell, but they were just asking, like, what's a blowjob? And I told them that a blowjob is like this sort of thing, and they'd all fall about laughing. And everything else was kind of like, how much should I be paying for ecstasy? And I said that, whatever the going rate is. We had been targeted a while before I started by a red top newspaper, and they called several times, pretending to be someone considering to take E and wanting advice on how to take it. Our supervisors in the company only cared about losing the contracts, so they told us not to give any real advice unless it was an extreme situation. I understand why the person you were talking to got so paranoid. I mean, there was a constant fear of being the person getting caught out.
Can I ask you why you're asking all these questions?
Just because it's an information line about drugs, so I'm just ringing.
Funnily though, there were things I enjoyed about the job. Some of the calls from the kids were hilarious, and I definitely got a better understanding of how these different issues affected people. Could I be a friendly voice on the other side of the phone for someone in need of help? Yes, but there was no coaching in how to do that. I'll be cynical and say that the helpline is an expensive performative service.
I put these findings to the Department of Health and the Home Office, who are responsible for running the Talk to Frank service. At the time of publication, however, they are yet to reply. If you find this video useful or interesting, do me a favour, hit the bell notification, and I'll see you on the next one.